What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, joined by the one, the only Kevo, looking nice and dapper today. We are here for our Cowboys Redskins Thursday Night Football weekly recap. If you guys are new to the Bottom Line View,
boring. Oh, that's the game, not you, by the way. Boring.
Okay, I thought you were hurting my feelings, Cap. If every week we come here. We sit through these boring games. We sit through the good games. We break it down for you. We go in depth. We cover every team in the league. We recap every Thursday night football game. We recap every Sunday night football game. We recap every Monday night football game. And we have other NFL videos every single day. So you might as well subscribe if you're an NFL fan. At least give us a shot. If you're already subscribed, we appreciate you. There was a very nice comment the other day by one of our newer subscribers. So I'd like to give a shout out to him. He knows who he is. Posted on Twitter. I really appreciate the support. We all do. Of course, AC and Dilly Vanilli is not here, so that kind of sucks that Dylan gets his first win in a couple weeks. His team's been beat on. It's been crapped on. And are they back, Kevo? Are the boys back?
No, they're not.
No, I agree with you. No, this was a poor football game. This was not only a boring football game, from an aesthetic watching perspective, it was like if you've ever watched football, you could realize that these teams weren't very good. If you watched a well-executed game plan by the New England Patriots or the Philadelphia Eagles or one of these Vikings, one of these good teams in the NFL, you could clearly see the difference between mediocre Cowboys and Redskins and top-notch Patriots, Eagles, and Vikings. You could clearly tell the difference. And I think we will once again on Sunday. But this was, again, Thursday Night Football, not a lot of practice time. You already had a lot of injuries coming to this game to especially key and star players on both sides. And then the Redskins were starting guards at tackle at the end of the game. The Cowboys, yeah, they got it going, but they still have a couple injuries of their own. Redskins, everything falling apart around Kirk Cousins. He's just trying to make something happen. So, yeah, this was the Thursday Night Football game. This was the definition of it. Kevo, what did you think of this game, the Cowboys and the Redskins?
Well, for the longest time in this game, the longest play was 9 yards for both teams. Well, Dylan mentions Alfred Morris got burst. He showed burst tonight, so we got to give him that. I feel like Kirk Cousins is in a situation where he's a really good quarterback that is trying to do, he feels like he has to do too much, almost. They don't have a running game. They don't have an offensive line. Every time they play, they're losing people left, right, and center. They don't really have a defense. And it just was one of those things where turnovers hurt the Redskins, and the Cowboys took advantage of it, but they weren't. Their passing game, I didn't think Cowboys' passing game was all that great tonight. I thought that they were buoyed by the performance by Alfred Morris. And they just seemed to find a way to beat Washington no matter how bad of a team that this is. Like, they seem to beat Washington. I don't know. They have their number. I can't explain it.
Yeah, over the past couple of years, they've definitely had their number. A lot of us picked the Redskins. You were one of them to pick the Cowboys. This was kind of one that wasn't – this was up in the air for me, though. I think a lot of people felt like this was going to be an easy Redskins win, which I definitely didn't feel that. I almost picked the Cowboys, but, like, just the way the Cowboys were playing and even the way they were playing at the beginning of this game was, like, pathetic. It was pathetic. They couldn't get a first down. They couldn't get anyone to get any separation against any corner or safety or anything. Linebacker, doesn't matter. They couldn't get any separation against the Redskins defense, which isn't a great defense. It's an okay defense with a lot of injuries, and they still couldn't really get open. And even as the game went on, yeah, they were better passing. Dak was more efficient. They kind of got a rhythm going. Dez made a nice catch, whatever, but they still don't really scare you from that perspective. I think the thing that really kind of snowballed for them was, like you said, they got the turnovers, they were put in good position, and then they were able to run the ball a good amount. Of course, Alfred Morris, this was his best game this season. as the starter without Zeke Elliott. And once they started to get that run game going like they do with Zeke, then everything else opens up. Dez, gets a couple balls. Cole Beasley, Terrence Williams, Jason Witten. Dak starts moving around and feeling confident. This offensive line. And, of course, I think the big thing is we've been talking about the loss of Zeke, the loss of Sean Lee, the loss of Tyron Smith. But, Tyron Smith, he's one player on this offensive line. You also have Travis Frederick and Zach Martin, who are both also all pros. I understand that you lost Doug Free, which I think was a bigger loss than a lot of people realize now. For some reason, Jonathan Cooper starts in the NFL, which I don't know why, but he starts on the Cowboys. There's a couple weak links in that Cowboys offensive line. And I think the reason why the Cowboys haven't been as consistent as an offense is because that offensive line hasn't been playing like they played tonight every single game. Without Zeke on last year's team, they would have been better equipped because their offensive line played a lot better. It was a lot more cohesive, and they dominated every game they played in, even when they lost. So for me, it's more like I think the Cowboys' offensive line is really the driving force. I think we forgot about that. You know what I mean? Tyron Smith, even without him, they should have still been able to overcome it, given that they also had two other all-pros that were still playing. So I'm not giving them an excuse in that department. I just think that offensive line is the reason why Dak has success. It's part of the reason why Zeke has success. And Zeke would be successful anywhere, but he's part of the reason Zeke has success. And it's the biggest reason why the team has success, because their defense isn't great. When they're able to possess the ball, they win games. So I think we forgot about this offensive line and the power that it has over this team.
Yeah, I agree. And I think going into this season, most of us had the Cowboys as a top-ranked offensive line. That was why I thought that they would still hang on in the NFC East, is because I thought that their line would be okay. And when they're playing well, it does do well. And, they made Morris look pretty good tonight. Morris isn't great, but he did his job tonight. And but this Redskin team is just beat up everywhere. Like everywhere. Like, I mean, poor Jay Gruden. Like, I know that we're not fans of Jay Gruden, but how can you really coach this team when everyone you're putting out is down, getting hurt, you're switching people around? Like, I almost have a little bit of, like, I'm not a fan of Jay Gruden, but
I don't hate Jay Gruden. I don't know. This thing comes from like AC, where he thinks he's a bad coach and everything. I don't think he's proven to be a bad coach. I think every year he's been there, they've had a good offense. They've maybe struggled a bit on defense at times, but they keep getting all these injuries this year. I feel like the Redskins would be right with the Falcons if they had their full team. I feel like they would be kind of right at that 7-4-ish mark. Now they're like 5-7, I think, because they don't have like half their team. Like, you're talking about putting guards at tackle.
Yeah, that's Seahawks football.
Yeah, that's
Seahawks
like terrible.
Offensive line,
So I think the Redskins, obviously, I think everything just in this game, we saw the Redskins just fall apart. We've seen the Redskins push and push and push and push, and they've been coming on the losing end of things against good teams. And today, I think they just had a couple bad turnovers, couple bad mistakes, and injuries and injuries and injuries, and they just fell apart, and the Cowboys took advantage, and the Cowboys season was on the line, and the Cowboys needed to win, and Dak Prescott stood up. This team stood up, and the clapper clapped, and they got it done. So
yes, he was clapping well tonight, I thought.
Yeah, he was clapping very well.
Good palm work, though. His best.
Yeah, so that's how I feel about Jay Gruden. I don't think he's going to get fired. I think AC believes he's going to get fired. I don't see him getting fired because I think this isn't a, I guess it's an excuse, but also it's a pretty good excuse of missing a lot of your core pieces on your team. And I think they still realize that this team has a long way to go. Look, I mean, he lost his 2 best receivers in the offseason, and they thought they filled that with the GM. I thought the GM thought he made the right moves, right? He didn't. So I think the GM did a good job with the defense. I think it's better than it was last year, especially a couple of additions with like Zach Brown and stuff were nice. They did lose I believe they lost their first round pick, who was playing really well, Allen, in this season as well. So I think they made some nice moves in the offseason on defense. Offensively, they still don't have a run game. Their offensive line fell apart, and their receivers, really Kirk Cousins is making it happen with basically only one respectable receiver. I mean, Josh Doxson, I guess, is okay. And even in this game, Crowder had a bad game. So, yeah, I think this falls more on the GM for the offensive woes, and I don't think Jay Gruden is necessarily going to be fired after this season.
I guess the question for me, and this may seem a little harebrained, but hear me out. Do you franchise Kirk Cousins, or do you take this money that you would lose for Kirk Cousins, let him go, and build a team of depth around you with a lesser quarterback? Like, I'll just toss a name out there as an example, like Case Keenum. Like, you look what Case Keenum has done. He's not a great quarterback, but that team around him.
Part of the reason is, I understand where you're going, is the Vikings have everything else.
But if you build the team around,
Keenum is I think Case Keenum is a better player than people give him credit for.
Like, oh, yeah.
I think he was, like, you look at his career in Houston, he showed some flashes. They didn't necessarily win, but they weren't a good team. Then he goes to LA, and he actually has a winning record. He has a winning record last year, even on this Jeff Fisher terrible offense that we've seen how improved it is this year with Jared Goff. And now he goes to the Vikings with a great team around him, and now all of a sudden it's like a miracle that Case Keenum is good. I think he's had talent all along. It's just now he has a better supporting cast. Yeah. He's making great decisions. And I understand what you're trying to say, but it's also difficult to find a quarterback like that. And I think Jay Gruden is a very specific guy when it comes to who his quarterback is. Honestly, I think because unless you go a different direction with your coach, maybe, what's a possibility is maybe they try and bring in a guy like Alex Smith. Maybe Alex Smith leaves and they try and bring in Alex Smith. Kirk Cousins goes somewhere else, signs a big contract, whatever. And then they signed Alex Smith for modest money, and they sign a couple receivers, a couple guys on defense. And then you're talking about a playoff team potentially. But then again, we're basically with Alex Smith, or like a quarterback like Alex Smith, we're at to the point where you can't win a Super Bowl with this guy. You can win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins. We just need to get lucky and kind of surround him with stuff. Because we've seen over the past couple of years, the Seahawks are only 7-4 because of Russell Wilson. Aaron Rodgers took the Packers to the NFC Championship. The Patriots are good every season no matter who's playing because of Tom Brady. So I think if you have a quarterback, you're good no matter – you're at least decent no matter what. It depends on the season. It depends on how things fall. It depends on the coaching. It depends on the injuries of other teams and how good the rest of the league is to really see how good you are. And I would rather sign that quarterback or franchise that quarterback because I believe in Kirk Cousins and then just trust myself to surround him with talent than really get a lesser guy and then have to bank on, okay, I'm going to get the next AJ Bouye from the Jaguars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I hear you. It's just, it's just you feel with the depth of this team. You're right. I think if they were healthy, I think that this would have been a more competitive game. I don't think they're that like. It's going to be interesting to see what happens to the Eagles next year because we're looking at a team that's going in 10-1.
They could very well be like the Cowboys from last year.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, we'll have to analyze that next year, but. You look where the Giants are. The Giants are way out. They're a long way from anything.
Oh, they're done.
They're done for a while. The Cowboys are in a really inconsistent position. So if you build enough, you potentially could get a wild card spot if you're Washington at the least.
Washington is the biggest question mark in this entire division because if they re-sign Kirk Cousins, they're a contender basically no matter what, like a contender to win this division no matter what. But if they go a different direction, then we're talking about a team that could potentially fall to the top 10 in the draft.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and I feel like the Cowboys next year, I've said it all along. I said it before the year. I think this is their down year. I think they're going to be better next year because I think a lot of things happened in this offseason, like with their team and with besides like the other stuff.
Jason Garrett go though.
They do. I agree with that. But I still think that Jason Garrett can coach a good team. Like last year they were a good team and he coached them well, and I think he was coach of the year. So I think their team will be better. And then for the Eagles, I think I'm buying into the Eagles into the long term because they have Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
So because they have Carson Wentz, that means I think they're going to be good. I don't know if they're going to be 15-1 or whatever they are, 10-1 right now. Good, but I still think they'll be in the playoff hunt because they have that quarterback.
Yeah, I agree.
So as for this game, we're kind of talking about the variables of the Cowboys, the Redskins. As for this game, I'm going to pull up the stats. But first off, before I get to that, Kev, do you think that there is still a chance that the Cowboys do make the playoffs?
No, I don't.
Why do you say that?
I think
I know that Collinsworth and they were trying to build it up to the fact that, hey, they still have a shot because they only have 2 more games to go and then Zeke's back and then, hey, they can win the rest of their games. They do play the Giants. I don't know who else they play. I know they play the Raiders once. I don't think they have a terribly difficult schedule. I think the Seahawks is probably the most challenging game, but that is with Zeke back. So who really knows if they could win that game? I'm not saying they are going to, but with Zeke back, the team's totally different, and who really knows what will happen. But if this team could go 10-6 and run the table, do you think they could make it, or do you think that they're pretty much just out?
I'm starting to wonder if 11 or 12 wins is going to be what gets in the NFC playoffs. Like, I think it might have to get 11 to do it. The way that Carolina's going, the way Atlanta's going, they're both on rolls. Like, if Atlanta wins...
But then again, Carolina plays Atlanta, and Atlanta plays Carolina. The Saints play Carolina. They play Atlanta. So there's going to be losses there just out of... And the Vikings play some good teams. So there's, like, out of just playing good teams, there's going to be losses. Like, playing each other.
Yeah. I think, to me, the even with Zeke back, this receiving core doesn't scare me at all.
Oh, no.
It doesn't. Like, it's just like Des Cole and Terrence Williams. Like, you guys mock Paul Richardson and Tyler Lockett, but I'll take them over Beasley and Terrence Williams any day of the week. Like
yeah, I probably would too. There he is.
Here, it's the legend.
Still got his burger uniform.
I just got off work. Yes, I did. So I'm here.
And we haven't really been talking too much about the game, Dylan. We've just been basically, talking about the future of the NFC East, the Cowboys, the Redskins, a little bit about the Eagles, the Giants, the Kirk Cousins situation, the Cowboys. And I really like a couple of the big points, I guess, was like what happens to the Redskins with Kirk Cousins. Another big point that I had was, I think, at the beginning of this, I kind of started off with a rant about how we forgot that the Cowboys' offensive line is the driving force for this team, and this is the reason. This is part of the biggest reason why they won this game today. There's other reasons, of course, mostly the ineptitude of the Redskins, but the Cowboys' offensive line, it hasn't been as good this year. They haven't dominated games the way that they have. They lost Doug Free, they lost Leary, and those were big losses. And they, Tyron Smith was obviously out, but I was still talking about how Zach Martin and Frederick were all pros and how they still should have had it together. And now finally they kind of pieced a good performance together. And that we kind of forgot that that's the reason that Dak was successful. Like, the biggest reason why that offense was so good is because they could possess, and that team was so good is because they could possess the ball, they could run, they could pass, they were balanced, and that offensive line always won their matchup. Yep. So I want to know what you feel about those situations, the game, whatever you saw, and just your thoughts about the Cowboys going forward.
Well, yeah, if you have a good offensive line, you're going to win games. Good offensive lines travel well, so that helps out in the future. It's been inconsistent on the line lately, but looks good tonight. I didn't get to see I only saw a couple plays, but I look at the scoreboard, and I see 38-14. That makes me a little bit more happy, even if I don't know if it was because of the Redskins or whatever. There were a couple of turnovers, it looks like. Let me see the box score here. Kirk Cousins 2 interceptions. Okay. Does Jay Gruden get fired? I feel like that's a question that can be thrown up in there.
We were talking about this.
We were talking about that.
I personally said no because he's had so many injuries this year. Like they were at the point in this game, Dylan, where they couldn't protect Kirk Cousins because they had their third string right guard at like right tackle and like their second string left guard at left tackle. Like it was ridiculous. Like they had guards playing tackle. Kirk Cousins was just running around for his life. And Jay Gruden, like, I feel like he's done a good enough job to kind of keep his job. And I actually blame it more on the Redskins offseason for not supporting Kirk Cousins enough on offense to really have a contending team. Because you think about it, I blame their general manager for losing their receivers and not getting good receivers. Like they could have signed Jeffrey maybe instead of Pryor, right?
Because they lost two 1,000-yard receivers and then decided Pryor was going to be this.
And they got a bust in Pryor. And Reed's been hurt, which obviously is a huge part of their offense, but they don't have a run game still, and they knew they probably didn't have a run game coming into this year.
Well, and then Chris Thompson got hurt, so
and Chris Thompson got hurt, and their offensive line has been hurt all year. So, I mean, I think it more falls on the general manager. I feel like he did a better job on defense, like Zach Brown and everything's been pretty good, but they're all hurt too. So what's Jay Gruden really going to do?
Okay. I feel you. I again didn't watch this game, so I don't know.
It's just I think the problem is Snyder's not. The thing is Snyder's not going to look at it that way.
He's incompetent. That's how I think he's been.
A bit of a hothead.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of those like when I get on Jerry Jones because he's a distraction. Daniel Snyder's a distraction too, and they haven't been Redskins football since Daniel Snyder owned this team. And I always will remember when Daniel Snyder brought in everybody. Like he tried to build this team with the All-Star team and they just blew up in his face. That was one of the greatest signings of all time.
Of course.
Sarcasm, you know. I think he's an albatross on this team too. And unfortunately, I like Jay Gruden is I'm kind of with Mitch. I wouldn't fire him. I think he's going to get fired because they didn't get into the playoffs.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think the injuries help out his case. It looks like
I think if you were looking, and I'm trying to be the defender here of Jay Gruden. I don't love Jay Gruden, but I don't hate Jay Gruden. I'm probably the biggest fan of Jay Gruden here. But
I don't hate him. I mean, he's okay.
Like if you looked at the Redskins' expectations before the year, you would say they were a team that was borderline playoffs. Like, and with all these injuries, like I think if they had all their players and were fully healthy, they would be right around where, they would probably be a couple wins more. They'd probably be around like the Falcons, like 7-4, 6-5, probably. They're like 5-7. They'd probably be like 7-4. In my opinion.
I predicted them to go 8-8 at the beginning of the season.
So you predicted them to go 8-8. I predicted them to go 9-7. So what really were the expectations for the Redskins?
I mean, they were better than this, but I mean, it's not.
Yeah,
it's not a whole lot better. No.
Gruden, they've ran into teams that are good that we didn't necessarily think were very good.
Yeah.
Like they had to play the Eagles twice. They play the Saints. They had to play a couple of teams that were better than we really thought they would be.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, Gruden's my third favorite coach from the NFC East. He's still a bit ahead of McAdoo, if you will. So it looks
McAdoo
like
is one of the worst coaches of all time.
All time.
I know. I was just joking. But he gets credit though. He's still there. Okay. So the Redskins had 4 turnovers in this game. Okay. 2 fumbles. Actually 3, but one was.
That's a huge reason why your Cowboys won.
I'll take it. Considering the most amount of points we had scored in the last 3 weeks is 9. I'll take 38 points. Yeah. However we can get it.
It looked really rough at the beginning of the game.
There was 3 and outs, right?
Yeah. Then they got like a couple of like turnovers, and that sort of started to, and then their run game started to get going, and then they started to kind of just it snowballed from there. Like I think Crowder fumbled. Mm-hmm. Kirk Cousins had a tipped interception at the end of the game. He threw another interception, and then someone else fumbled too.
Nice.
So,
well, I'll take also the Ryan Switzer 83-yard punt return. That's good.
I don't know why. Why isn't he playing on offense?
I don't know.
Answer this question.
I don't. Wait, did he even do anything on the offensive side tonight? Did he even have a
Their pass game was atrocious tonight.
Hey, but Alfred Morris got 127 yards.
Yeah.
Yeah, we said this was his best game. He showed burst.
He showed burst.
I like it. Dak's numbers look terrible.
Yeah.
He got he got injured in the second quarter and then came back, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Okay. That's still pretty atrocious numbers.
Some guy named Dez caught a touchdown.
Dez caught now he's the all-time leading receiver in Cowboys touchdowns. That's
really
great. Yeah.
So did some guy named Witton. I think he's the age of 202.
Hey, his one catch today was a touchdown. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It looks like a pretty rough day for Dak besides throwing to Dez, which has been his normal thing all year.
Defensive line kind of at the end of the game when the Redskins lost other players dominated. Irving killed Cousins on one hit, like just destroyed him, and Cousins got right back up. It was clean too.
Nice.
What else happened? Defensively, I don't know. There was an interception that tipped right to Heath.
Yeah, Heath is the luckiest fucking person, I swear.
Woods played slot corner. Just if you want to know that.
Okay. Interesting.
The wrestler.
They benched Anthony Brown. Did he come back in this game or did he play at all? Do you know?
I wasn't paying that close attention. I couldn't really tell.
Okay, no, I'm looking at the box score. It says he has one tackle. So he got in there at some point.
Yeah.
He wasn't.
Yeah, I don't think he was like a big component of their defensive game plan. I'll say that.
No, because the Wouzier, I believe, is coming back in this game. Did he? Yeah, he came back today. So
what else happened, Kevin? I don't think there was much else. It was boring.
That's really,
it was not a good game.
It was
sloppy. It was
sloppy. Then it was 7-0. The Cowboys drove down. The Redskins fumbled. Cowboys got a field goal. Then all of a sudden it was 17. No scoring in the third, and then the Cowboys scored 2 late touchdowns to.
As a Cowboys fan, I didn't watch the game, so I can't say anything. But I will take whatever points we can get, considering the last 3 performances. Now I'm looking at the last 4 games that we have on the season. Play the Giants, the Raiders, the Seahawks, and the Eagles. Those first 2 matchups, I'm not a whole lot scared of, especially the Giants game. Those last 2 games are critical. So what I want to see as a Cowboys fan, and I'm going to leave on this because I got to do paper, I want the Cowboys to go out there and show strong performances in these next 2 games, bump up their record, hopefully with a respectable 2 wins there. Zeke will come back in that Seahawks game, Kevin. I want to remind you that. And then see what happens from there. Because the Eagles might have probably will already clinch the division by week 17 when we get there. So, they might just give us the game, which would be nice, AC. But, you never know.
I think the big game is I think they can beat, I think they play the Giants.
The Giants and the Raiders are the next 2 games.
They can beat the Raiders. The key game is the Seahawks. If they can beat the Seahawks, then they have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
But then me and Kev were talking about you might have to be 11-5 just to.
You might. That's the problem.
So. Okay, well, let me look at the rest of the people. So you got Detroit, who have the Ravens, the Bucks, Bears, Bengals, Packers. That is not a strong. That's a pretty easy schedule right there.
Yeah. And they're a game ahead.
I am telling you though.
They're one game ahead.
I'm going to tell you. I'm thinking about changing my pick. I don't know if I think the Lions are going to beat the Ravens.
Maybe that'll help us. If Detroit loses, they will be at the same record as us. So, Seattle plays the Eagles, the Jaguars, the Rams, the Cowboys, and the Cardinals. That's a very difficult schedule, Kev. And then Atlanta.
We told him this. He believes.
That's a very fucking difficult schedule. And then the Falcons also have an equally tough schedule. They got to play the Vikings, Saints, Buccaneers, Saints, Panthers. So my biggest concern out of any of those teams to make it is Detroit, based off of schedule, based off of who can beat me. There's 2 teams right there. But
your receivers are dog doo-doo. I'm sorry. Your receivers are terrible. Your receivers are pedestrian.
Why did I bring this up? I'm talking about your schedule. Your schedule is insanely difficult.
But we have a better record than you.
By 1 game, Kev.
So you got to tell me.
I'm not saying our team is better.
Did you hear what I said? You have to beat us, though. You have to beat another team.
Yeah, we have to beat the Giants and the Raiders. One team I'm definitely. It's week 17. They might just give it to us, which I'll be happy with.
You're relying.
I don't know if they will. If the Cowboys have to win that game to get into the playoffs, they might play that game.
Well, then at least
Cowboys.
You gotta get a chance, though. I mean, your schedule is really difficult, Kev.
No, I'm not picking the Seahawks to get in. But then again, you look at Atlanta's schedule.
At least we have the way to get in the division, though. Like, which is a better chance.
The only way the Cowboys get in is if they win the next 2 games and somehow Zeke comes back and ignites this team and they play the way that they were before and they get on some sort of run and then they tear apart the Seahawks and they.
Here's the thing. My playoff percentage.
Atlanta loses a couple games and Detroit loses a couple games. That's how they get in.
My playoff hype in terms of the Cowboys went from 5% coming into this game to about 25% out of this game. So that raises it at least. We'll just have to see how it goes from there.
And now I would like to say that I'm a little bit more confident in my Chargers.
What? Explain?
Because they just whooped the shit out of this Cowboys team. And they play the Redskins next week, which I thought was an iffy win. And now I'm feeling like it's a confident
Now it's a confident victory. What's the Chargers? Unfortunately, I feel like they're going to make the playoffs, which sucks. Because
they're probably going to
schedule easy.
They're probably going to win their division.
They can go 10-6. I'm looking at their next 5 games. They got the Browns, win. Redskins, probably a win. Chiefs, they don't get their heads out of their asses. That's a win. Jets, win. Raiders, win. What the fuck? I will say though, it'll be a tie if you get the division and the Ravens get the 6th seed. I'll take the tie.
Okay, honestly, if we have to watch a Jaguars Baltimore Ravens wildcard game, oh my goodness. It's gonna be rough. 6-3. Blake Bortles is gonna have 4 passing attempts. It's gonna be run, punt, run, punt, run, punt.
God, that may be the worst game I've ever seen.
Fumble, interception, run.
Oh my god. Well, maybe. Well, hopefully, the Chargers become the 3 seed then. You never know. They're only.
Bro, remember who picked the Chargers to go to the divisional round?
I don't know what you're talking. They're not going to the divisional round. They're not even going to the division. Well, actually, depends on who they play.
They gotta make the playoffs first. But if they make the playoffs, they're gonna make the divisional round, like I said.
If they made the divisional round, they would play who?
Probably the Patriots, which I had in the.
Oh well, no. If they play, okay, not my bad. I meant the wild card.
Okay, let's say they make the 4th seed. Let's say they make the 4th seed. They would play the 5th seed, which would be probably the Titans or the Jaguars, and they could beat the Titans, and they should have beat the Jaguars already. Plus, that game would be at home, so. I don't know. I think that they could.
The Jaguars are better at home on the road than they are at home.
What's the record
the Chargers
at home?
The record at home is 3-2. The record on the road is 4-2.
That's kind of the same.
Maybe that depends on who they played, though. You never know.
That's kind.
Well, let's look at that.
Hold on.
All right.
So they were on the road.
Because I gotta go to the Messiah Bowl.
All right, Messiah Bowl.
I've got to leave, so I just want to put my buttons out there.
Okay, thanks, Dilly. See ya.
Yep.
Okay, to the comments. Hunter Harling says, hey, look what happens when Dallas runs it more than 11 times with Alfred Morris. Yeah. Run game, but you also have to be in situations where you can run the ball. Sometimes they've been games where they've been forced out of running the ball. One, it hasn't really been too good when they've ran the ball, and second, they've been getting their ass kicked, so they haven't been able to run the ball. Beasley Game says, you look like a butt. All right, thank you. Rob says, percentage chance Jay Gruden is fired at the end of the year. I think it's 45%.
I'm going to go 70 because Snyder's an albatross to that franchise.
Yeah, Rob says Daniel Snyder might want a scapegoat.
Yeah.
Rob says maybe Teddy Bridgewater to the Redskins. You know what? If the Vikings lose in the playoffs, I feel like a lot of people are going to blame Case Keenum, even if it's not his fault.
Yeah.
And I think that they might just stick with Teddy and let Case go, which then, in fact, that would be smart for someone else to pick Case Keenum up.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't bank on Teddy Bridgewater being the one leaving.
You're relying on a guy that's been out for over a year, though.
True.
Doesn't feel.
But according to the Vikings Association, loves Teddy and this and that. So, Rob says Cousins could capitalize on the weak quarterback draft class next year. I think Kirk Cousins. I'm gonna say it right now. If Kirk Cousins goes to Jaguars, they're winning the Super Bowl next year.
They'll need some more stuff to happen.
If Kirk Cousins goes to the Jaguars, they are winning the Super Bowl next year. Kirk Cousins could also go to a team like maybe the Chiefs, or not the Chiefs, the Steelers, if Big Ben gets, if he retires, or something happens to him. He could also go to the Redskins, of course. He could also go to the Giants. He could also go to the 49ers if they decide that Jimmy is going to leave for some reason, or I don't know.
Well, they're going to franchise Jimmy.
That could still happen. Yeah. He could go to the Cardinals. He could go to the Jets. He could go to a lot of different teams. The Dolphins. So the Bills. There's a lot of possibilities with Kirk Cousins. But I think he's going to be the most targeted player, obviously. And I think it's going to take a while. He's probably going to have that circuit where he goes to this team, he goes to that team, he goes to this, and then he'll decide the ultimate decision.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of the interesting part about free agency.
If he will make this decision on the bottom line view,
I will ask him. I will ask him. But anyways, I think that this is going to be an interesting year because usually we depend on the quarterback draft class, but this year it's going to be the quarterback free agency class, which is going to be the interesting part of free agency. So that's going to be interesting.
Tyrod Taylor's not bad either.
Tyrod Taylor, Case Keenum, Teddy Bridgewater, Alex Smith, Eli Manning, Kirk Cousins. So it's going to be interesting. And then we'll have the drama with Big Ben. We'll have maybe McCown.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Joe Flacco maybe is on the way out. There's a lot of question marks.
I think that I'll say this. I think Eli is going to be one of the least sought after.
Jacoby Brissett too. Someone could trade for him, or something could happen.
Who?
Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, he could be in there too. I think Eli is going to be the least sought after free agent quarterback, though.
I think Eli is probably going to retire.
I think so too.
But unless the Jaguars take him, I think he's going to retire.
Yeah, I think if he goes with Tom. Yeah.
Factor Fiction Cow Shits finished 7-9. I had them finishing 7-9 before the year. They are now what? They have 6 wins?
Yeah, they're 6-6.
I'll say they finish 8-8 now. On 8-8, or yeah, some 8-8. We'll say 8-8. I'm still not sold on them completely. On the positive spectrum, they could obviously make the playoffs and go 10-6. On the negative spectrum, this could be a mirage and they could go 7-9. But I think they're beating the Giants regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah. Machiavelli says, "Are you talking about yourself?" I don't know if he's talking to that guy that says you look like a bud. I don't know what he's talking about. Rob says, "Dilly dilly." F Trump says, "Did we win?" Yes. You lost, Redskins fan. I didn't know what fan you were until I looked at your logo. Rob says, percentage chance Jaguars land Eli in a trade. It wouldn't be in a trade. It would be in free agency. Did the Redskins blow out the Cowboys? No, the Cowboys won. 4 more games to go. Someone else said, Bodo says, Washington O-line and D-line is a mess. I think a lot of that has to do with injuries. Notifications never work. Rest in peace. Is that talking about our notifications? I hope they work.
I got the notification.
Oh, you did? Okay. I hope they work. F Trump says we have 23 injured people. Factor Fiction. Colt McCoy gets the reps the remainder of the season.
For who?
Kirk Cousins. Fiction.
Yeah, that's fiction. They're not going to pull the Giants.
He only played this game because they didn't want to get him killed. Derek Milani says Dylan, very impressive win. Watchful News says How he was just talking about Jack Kent. Since he sold the team, he was a very good owner in a number of different organizations, but Snyder sucks, basically, to sum that up. What else? Niners beat the Bears on Sunday. Fact or fiction? Well, I picked the Bears because I think they're the better team, but I'm hoping the 49ers win. So that's my answer.
Fiction. Yeah, the Bears will be winning that game.
If the Seahawks win, you got to stop sucking Carson Wentz's dick and say Eagles are not legit. I think they're legit either way.
I mean, if the Seahawks blow out the Eagles, then you can have a conversation about how
legit the Eagles are, but I think they're still in the conversation.
Yeah. If it's a close game, it's a loss, and it's only 2 losses on the year. So even in a blowout, I mean, it would have to be like 42-0 for people to legitimately start questioning the Eagles. I can't see that happening.
Trump's not a believer. He says all their wins, 49ers, Bears, Deadskins, Cowgirls, Chargers, Giants, Broncos, Cardinals, they're all trash.
Yeah, but that's the schedule that they were given, and they won those games. And they've handled those games really well. Yeah. I don't know what the Eagles could have been.
What else did they need to do? Did they need to win 100-0 every game?
Yeah, I think the criticisms of the Eagles are kind of ridiculous. I
think the biggest question mark to me is of the Eagles is they're the Eagles. That's my biggest. I don't know if they can do it just because they're the Eagles.
Yeah,
that's my thing. That's my only thing. And maybe the other thing would be they probably have to play the Patriots. Yeah. Other than that, I don't know.
Yeah. And it's also tough for a second-year quarterback.
Yeah.
To do a Super
And they got a lot of hype, so that obviously.
Yeah.
Marco says Dak equals Alex Smith 2.0. What else? Percentage chance Andrew Luck is traded this offseason.
5.
Yeah, I would say 10 actually, but I doubt it. Highly doubt it.
Highly doubt it.
Anyways, I think we should wrap it up there. I think Kevel, you got to go do some NHLing. Plug the NHL channel. Plug whatever you need to, and we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, so we did a trade recap of the day's events, which was a busy day. The trade of Adam Henrique to the Ducks for Sami Vatanen, as well as the unfortunate retirement of Derek Dorsett, and why the hell the Edmonton Oilers don't have a backup goalie. And tonight was another reason. So they did a couple of live views tonight and did very well. They're recapping currently the Messiah Bowl or Connor McDavid's Edmonton Oilers losing.
How far into they are in there? Are they?
We probably can jump right in, I think. I'll just check how far.
Should I jump in? I think I got to. I got to rip John apart for his take on the Oilers when I told him the Oilers stink.
Okay. I will message that you're going to get a surprise viewer.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us. It's Mitch, Kevel of the Bottom Line View. Thanks for Cowboys. Destroy the Redskins 38-14 on Thursday Night Football. Are the boys back? That question is yet to be confirmed, but we don't quite think so.
No.
If you guys enjoyed, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and keep supporting us. We appreciate you. If you're new, subscribe, damn it. Just do it.
Subscribe.
Do it.
Subscribe.
Bye.
Subscribe.